Following program is a production of the Fairfax Network, Fairfax County Public Schools. Funded in part by the Virginia Satellite Educational Network.
Hello there and welcome to Meet the Author. I'm your host Tracy Jewell. Della Kidd is out on assignment today. I want to introduce you to our in-studio guest, New York Times best-selling author Adriana Trigiani.
Thank you for having me.
We're excited.
Thrilled to be here.
We got a lot to talk about.
I know we do.
Adriana will be sharing her ideas about the writing process, discussing her books, and maybe filling us in on the ancient art of Chinese face reading. We'll talk about that a little later.
Why not? Let's hit it all.
Yeah, we're going to cover a lot of topics. We also have some additional guests joining us today from a very special place. These folks are joining us via video conference from Adriana's hometown high school, Powell Valley High School in Big Stone Gap, Virginia. Hey, Powell Valley, how are you guys doing today? Good. Right, it looks like they can hear us.
Hi, everybody.
We can see them. That's great. All right, we're going to get back to you guys in just a minute, so hang in there, Powell Valley. First, Adriana Trigiani's novels blend colorful characters, rich dialogue, and vivid descriptions to draw her readers into her stories. As a novelist, she is best known for her Big Stone Gap series. Some of her other book titles include Lucia, Lucia, Rococo, Very Valentine, and many more. And in addition to her novels, she co-produced a family memoir in the form of a cookbook called Cooking with My Sisters. So some great recipes in that. Recently, Adriana's first young adult novel, Viola in Real Life, has hit the bookstore shelves. So we're going to be talking about that book today, but that's an impressive list.
Thank you so much. I'm very lucky because I have a job that I'm crazy about.
Yeah.
I love my work, and I sure love talking to all the students. This is a dream come true for me.
Well, now, with the variation in your list there, is there any common denominator in all of those books?
I would say the common denominator in my books is a strong central character, usually a woman, although in Rococo it was a man, but it's usually a woman who is on a mission to put her life in order and to move forward and to grow. I would say those are the themes that I'm most interested in. Okay. I turn the same rock over all the time, which is how do I spend my time here on Earth to its maximum potential.
So maybe a teeny bit of autobiographical stuff in there?
Well, I don't know, because as a writer, I view myself as somebody who's observing the action, as opposed to somebody who's in the action. Now, there's certainly an action to being an author. You're in movement. I'm on a book tour. It's very exciting. I've been able to travel to a lot of places, but I never really leave my hometown in my emotional life. I really don't. It's there with me.
Yeah.
And when I go home, I'm immediately back where I was when I left there, which is fascinating.
Yeah. We're going to talk a little bit more about that hometown, but just want to let our folks out there know that this is a live presentation, so you can join the fun. If you have a question about the writing process, give us a call, and you too can meet the author, Adriana Trigiani. In just a few minutes, our phone lines will be open. If you're calling nationally, the number is 1-800-231-6359. For local calls, you can reach us at 703-978-1636. So we do have an eager audience of students there in Powell Valley, so we're going to get to them in just a moment, but we thought maybe we should give a little bit of a geography lesson for our folks out there watching.
Great.
So we're going to take a look at a map so that we can orient ourselves here a little bit, and we only had to use one state for our map because we're here in Virginia too, and we're up in Northern Virginia in Annandale, and then you can see going all the way down to the southwest corner.
Well, we like to say that Virginia is shaped like a boot, and that Big Stone Gap is essentially in the toe of the boot. It's really deeply into the southern western tip of the state of Virginia. But what's so exciting about where I come from is that it's the portal to 5 states, to North Carolina, Kentucky, Tennessee, Virginia, and North Carolina.
Wow.
So you've got it all, and West Virginia.
Yeah.
But you've got them all right there and you can see them, and it's an amazing, amazing place to have grown up.
Yeah, and we have a little sort of a rendition of the shot of
You have an
of Big
homage
Stone
to
Gap,
that's
so
the Powell Valley, the Powell Valley Valley, the valley,
it's beautiful.
which
beautiful.
the high school is nestled in.
Okay.
And that's why the high school was called Powell Valley High School, even though
Okay.
it's Big Stone Gap.
Okay. So we're going to go now to Powell Valley High School, the home of the Vikings, right?
Oh, I'm a very proud Viking.
Yeah. So we've got Powell Valley. You have your first question for us. Go ahead and let us know what that would be.
Hello, Miss Trigiani. How did growing up in a big Italian family in a small southern town help to shape you into the writer that you are today?
Wow. So we want to know then, how did growing up in a big Italian family in that town shape who you are as a writer today?
Well, that's a great question, and thank you so much for asking me that question, because I think it shaped everything about who I am as a person to have grown up in Big Stone Gap, because it was different from the cultural heritage that I have as an Italian. Although we found Italians in the mountains of Southwest Virginia. Your history there is so rich. You've got the Scots-Irish, which really are the cornerstone of the ethnicity there, which is a great. I've been to Scotland and to Ireland, and I encourage you to go when you can to see where your people come from, because they're fantastic and very similar to the people in Southwest Virginia in their demeanor, their temperament, and I would describe them as great storytellers, lots of fun, very focused on adventure.
Yeah.
That's how I would typify them.
Yeah.
And then there are some of you probably in that classroom that are of Melungeon descent. And the Melungeon people are a very interesting ethnic group, which is a mix of all of the heritages that lived in the mountains. And they think also included in that are some interesting kind of exotic elements, like the French from the French and Indian War, and the Turkish soldiers that were hired to come over and fight in the French and Indian War, and African American, Cherokee Indian, Native American. You have that all mixed. So that's an interesting group.
Yeah.
And then of course you have some Lebanese.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you know, so you have a real mix. And now the Filipino community in the last 30 years is there. So you really live in a place where you think it isn't as ethnically diverse, say, as New York City, but it truly has its own kind of colorful history and background. And to have grown up there meant that I honored my own tradition at home, and I honored my community tradition.
And I think we have some pictures of you in your younger years when you were there.
Oh, there's me as a little one.
Yeah, and that's so.
See my big family? And that's really shy 2 people.
Oh.
My brother Carlo wasn't born yet, and my sister Francesca wasn't born yet.
Okay. And there's another.
And there we're frolicking in the leaves, and I'm wearing the headband.
So
lovely.
Now, was this the kind of deal where you raked up the leaves and you jumped in?
We raked the leaves and jumped.
Yeah, I did that a little bit
and
myself.
those are my cousins and my sisters. And there's your beautiful Powell Valley, where the high school is set.
It's gorgeous.
You guys just get out there and look at those mountains, because there will come a time in your life when you need to just visualize them, and you can't look at them enough, is the way I look at that.
Yeah, beautiful.
Oh, there's our mutual pharmacy.
Oh.
That's the workplace of Ave Maria Mulligan McChesney, the character in Big Stone Gap.
Okay. And you recall going into that pharmacy, I'm sure.
Oh, I went every day.
Yeah.
That was my hangout.
Yeah.
This is the Big Cherry Lake up on the mountain. And you students know you have to take that dirt road all the way up the mountain, and it's quite beautiful. And
Yeah, just really, really pretty country.
Isn't it great?
Yeah, it's gorgeous.
Loved growing up there.
All right, so
Not
let's
any
go. We're going to go back to the students in Powell Valley. And you guys have, I know, a number of questions for us. So what's your next question for Adriana?
Your Big Stone Gap series has been a big hit, as well as your other for adults. What made you decide to tap into the world of young adult fiction with Viola in real life?
So this question is, because Big Stone Gap has been such a big hit for you, what made you decide to switch to young adult fiction with Viola in real life?
Well, the real reason that I wrote this book was for you. I wanted to come into your reading world, because I fell in love with reading in Big Stone Gap at your age, basically, maybe a little younger. Certainly from the age of 10, 11, 12, I began to really fall in love with reading. I know you're older than that, but Miss Billie Jean Scott at Powell Valley High School was our librarian, and she gave me some of the great books I've ever read, which included Walden by Henry David Thoreau. She gave me some of the great books that I treasure, Ralph Waldo Emerson. She really had a transcendentalist bent and encouraged me to read those, which was great. And then in middle school, and elementary school, I had Miss Ernestine Roller, and she gave me Beverly Cleary, Madeline L'Engle, all the great kind of middle school authors. And then when, of course, the most important thing is the town bookmobile, which was the Wise County bookmobile, and James Varner. Mr. Varner was the librarian. And so you see, this is really important to me and my history in Big Stone Gap, is that I was really deeply influenced by my teachers and my librarians. They were my rock stars. And they really helped me figure out a path in life. Not that I knew I was going to ever write a book, because I didn't know that. I was really interested in playwriting, and we used to do a town musical every year. So I sort of fell in love with the theater there, and then I went and studied it in college. But the whole place I was raised is what directly informs my work, because in every book, if I'm writing a book set in New Jersey or New York or in Virginia, it's a community of characters.
Yep.
So just as I'm looking at your classroom, I would create that community.
Yeah.
So it really, one feeds the other in a way.
Right. So I don't want to spoil it for students out there who haven't finished Viola yet, but can you give us just sort of a brief overview of what that story is?
Well, Viola in real life is the first of a series of books, and we haven't determined a number. It might be 10 books. And you can see from the cover, the jacket art really tells you the story of this book. It's about a girl from Brooklyn, New York, who wears we call them kicks in New York, very funny shoes. They're the color of taxi cabs. And she's got a camera with her because she keeps a video diary. Now, what you guys will really tune into in this book is that this character records her thoughts and feelings electronically. So there's a lot of texting, computers, Skyping, her camera. And what happens to Viola is her parents, she's an only child, announced to her that she has to go to boarding school because they're going to make a documentary film in Afghanistan. So she records this. She doesn't want to go. She's kicking and screaming. She wants to stay in her cool Brooklyn neighborhood, but she's forced to go to Indiana. And there she creates a life and a new family and a new community. And there's a character from Richmond, Virginia named Marisol Carreras. She's a Latina. She's there on scholarship. There's a character, Suzanne Santry from Chicago, whose mother went to the school many years ago and loves the idea of her daughter going there. And she's quite beautiful and accomplished. And then there's Romy Dixon, and she's the jock, and she's from upstate New York, and she has like 4,000 parents because her parents remarried, and so many siblings. So she comes to the boarding school to do the athletics.
So a lot of
characters. So it's a big,
yeah.
There's a lot of, again, a big group of, and a family dynamic. But interesting, her grandmother comes to see her, and her grandmother's a Broadway actress. So there's a whole element to that, and there's a ghost in the story. And that's for all of you out there that really want to be a writer or want to be an artist of some sort. And that would include acting, directing, writing, any of the things you really love or think you're going to be interested in studying. I really laced that theme through the book of the ghost because it's her subconscious. And the best way that I can describe what your subconscious is, it's where you do your writing. A lot of people think you sit there and stare at it and you type and you look and you think, oh, but that isn't what happens. What it's really about is you do all your work when you're sleeping. As I'm talking to you now on camera, I'm working on my book. And you say, well, how's this possible? Here's the best way I can describe it. You know when you have to get up really early and you set the alarm. But the night before you say to yourself, I'm going to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning. But you set the alarm to wake you up, right? But you wake up a minute before the alarm goes off. That is your subconscious. And your subconscious is that thing that if you train it, connects you to achieving a goal.
Yeah.
So if you wake up, you can apply this to sports. If you're the quarterback of the football team or you're the wide receiver and you got to receive, you can focus on that and study that and use the power within you to draw that to you. And the writer, the artist, the painter, it's all done within us, in our soul, in our heart, whatever you want to call it. And then with that power, I never get blocked. I could write 1,000,000 books.
Yeah.
Because there's no end to the power of that subconscious.
Yeah. And because it's not like sitting down and staring at a screen
No, you don't
for hours.
stare at a screen and wait for the poem to come.
Right.
You think about it. And I even have friends that are writers who will call me and say, well, I just can't get this to work. And I say, walk away from it.
Yeah.
And think about it. And then it will come back to you.
Okay. I think we have another question from our students at Powell Valley. What's your next question down there?
Was it difficult to go from writing for an adult audience to writing for a teen audience? And were there any particular challenges that you faced?
Audiences there.
That's another great question.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a great question because I don't see a difference in the amount and the level and the intensity of the work that I do. There are things that are appropriate to an adult audience that are not appropriate because you wouldn't care about it as an audience, as a teen audience. You're not going to care. But what my job is as an artist is to figure out what you care about and write to that.
Yeah.
That's the idea. So that creates a difference. But I will tell you this, I know that you're just as smart as any grown-up. I know you have just as many dreams as any grown-up, and that you have a point of view of the world that should be addressed. And that's what I attempt to do when I write. So it's about really giving as much focus and attention, but in a way that somebody who's 14, 15, or 16 would respond to it.
Yeah. And, we have a number of students out there who watch the program who are themselves aspiring writers. When you do that, do you picture a person that you're writing to?
I absolutely do, and I create somebody new. There's a great story, and some of you have read Gone with the Wind, I'm sure, at Powell Valley, because it's there, the little red book. I read it. Mrs. Scott gave it to me. And when it came time to make a movie of that, everybody thought that Clark Gable, at the time, this is 1939, way before you, this is your grandparents' time, okay? Way before you, maybe your great-grandparents. And everyone thought that the author thought of him when she wrote it, but she really just created the character, and he seemed so real that they had to attach him. For me, the character seemed completely real. I don't picture movie stars. I create somebody new. And then I actually think when I travel that I'm going to meet them. It's the other part of it that's a little wacky, but
it's authentic. Well, we also have some email questions from students who have sent those in. There's some from students here in Poe Middle School in Annandale, Virginia. And we have one from Omnia. And Omnia writes, is Viola in some way like you were when you were a teen? And if you're not the personality of that character, how did you capture her personality?
Omnia, that's a great question. I love this question. No, I'm not her. She's wholly an independent creation. I was not allowed to really do the kinds of things Viola's allowed to do when I was a teenager. I come from a very strict family, and when I was young, cameras were not readily available. I have a 7-year-old daughter. She has a flip camera. She makes movies all the time. When I was young, film was very expensive, and it had to be developed in a lab. And photography, the same. So you didn't have digital where you could have a choice of 10,000 different photographs. You know, you didn't have that. So really, I can't compare myself to her at all in any way. And in terms of the technology, when I was growing up in Big Stone Gap, our television reception wasn't even very good. So your view of the outside world, you waited for those magazines to come. It was just a different way to grow up. So Omnia, it's a different character, but I hope she's very authentic and true. And I live in Greenwich Village in New York with my husband and my daughter, and I'm around a lot of teens, and I like to think that I've captured the authentic and true voice of the teenager.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I hope so.
Okay, we're going to go back to Powell Valley because we've got a lot of different kinds of questions coming in today. So Powell Valley, what's your next question?
Is Viola in real time inspired by your personal events and life experiences?
Inspired by your personal experiences?
No, she's not inspired by my personal experience. But as an artist, when you do this enough, you start to anticipate things. And I began to think about this years, maybe 3 years ago. It took me a year to write it. And I started to think about my audience, you, and how would I most shock you? And the way I would shock you is to move you. So I could write a very comfortable story about a girl who lives in the house she always lived in. But what if I took her from one state to another and required her in the 9th grade to make completely new friends and create her own community and family? So that's really the essence of it, is how do I, as an author, take what I know but make it completely and wholly original.
Yeah. Big challenge, I would think.
It's a big challenge, but it's really fun.
Yeah.
It's really fun.
Yeah. Okay, well, we've got another email question from some of our students out there, and this one is from Viola or from Destiny. Viola's the other.
I was so excited.
I know, it was going to be.
I was so excited we had a real Viola.
Destiny has a question about Viola, but Viola was expecting the worst when she arrived at boarding school, and Destiny wants to know: was there ever a time in your life when you expected the worst and got the best?
Yeah, this morning. Destiny, just this morning. There are so many moments like that in my life where I thought something was going to be terribly difficult, and it ended up to be something that opened up the world to me. I would say when I was growing up that there were that happened through my teachers a lot, because I would think that I was going to fail and I would pass. That was a big thing for me. I wasn't the top of my class at Powell Valley at all. I was a reader, though, and a seeker, but I wasn't very interested in making good grades, which was difficult when it came time to get into college, but they took me, which was really nice at St. Mary's, so it's very kind of them. But it was a wake-up call. Expecting the worst, I usually don't expect the worst. I really always try to think something's going to work out in the best possible manner that it will. And I just try to be resilient when I get the worst.
Yeah, yeah.
But that's a great question. Deeply philosophical. Maybe too philosophical for me, Destiny. Maybe too good a question. We need to get somebody in here who can answer that. That's a good question.
Yeah, it is. Well, we talked, you mentioned a little bit earlier about how you incorporated different technologies into the novel because of kids using those technologies. And we have an intern that works with us here at the Fairfax Network. Her name is Katherine. And so we asked Katherine to incorporate some of those technologies and to explore the topic of young adult fiction.
Okay.
So Katherine has created a little something that we'd like to show you. So we're going to do that, but when we return, more questions and more answers from Adriana Trigiani. But first, here's Katherine.
My name is Katherine. I just got this camera for my birthday and decided I would give it a test drive by documenting my life as a young adult reader. Young adult, that sounds kind of weird, but libraries and publishers use the term young adult to identify a key market. Readers like me who would read and identify with books like Viola in Real Life by Adriana Trigiani. Viola is a video diarist just like me. I guess like in a lot of young adult books, people can really relate to the main character. You see, Viola had a difficult high school transition, and well, so did I, and so do a lot of other people. But this video diary entry is not going to be just about me. It's going to be about what other young adults use diaries and journals for, and what they look for in young adult books.
Young adult book? Yeah. Oh. Can it just be any book? Yeah. My favorite book is I think it's Jane Eyre. It's one of those things I just decided, but I like lots of different books.
My favorite fictional character is Will Perry from The Subtle Knife because of his determination.
My favorite fictional character is Edward Cullen.
Superman.
I would have to say Stargirl because she goes against the crowd.
My favorite book is probably what I'm reading right now, which is The Universe in a Single Atom by the Dalai Lama, which combines science, philosophy, and Buddhist thinking.
This is my journal. It's a paper and pencil journal, and I write whatever my thoughts are for the day.
I use a blog to document my day-to-day life and stuff. No, I don't keep a journal.
Well, there you have it. That's my video diary entry for the day. I hope you all learned something about what young adults look for in books and what kind of journals they keep. Well, I guess I'm going to be signing off. Until next time.
So that was a great job from Katherine. What'd you think?
I thought Katherine did an amazing job, and I also love that she uses her camera just like Viola does, or Viola does it like Katherine. And here's what's interesting too, is she looks a lot like I pictured Viola.
Oh, really?
A lot.
Interesting. Well, of course, one of the topics that Katherine talked with her friends about was what they're reading right now, and you talked a little bit about books that you read as a teenager. What do you think is the importance of that, of reading?
You know what, guys, here's the thing, for all you students that are listening, is pick something you like. Now, you saw in that clip many different authors. You saw the classics, which would be Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte. Let me tell you, my favorite book, probably when I was a kid, was Jane Eyre. But read what you like. For the guys, there are fantastic sports novels. I mean, names jump into mind, like Mike Lupica. He did a series of YA novels. You can find in your niche whatever you like. If you love fashion, there are certain books you can go to. We'll put a list on my website so you can go and see other things you might like. The important thing is to read. And you say, oh, but it's boring and I just don't want to. But here's the deal. In the world that we live in now that is so noisy and you're constantly pulled out in technological ways, in this world like this, you need to be able to be quiet within yourself. And the last place that we can do that is reader to subject. So do it, read, and seek out authors. I mean, I live in New York City because I read Harriet the Spy by Louise Fitzhugh when I was 10 years old. And I read it 100 times. I read it over and over and over again. To this day, I read a lot of nonfiction, which surprises everybody because I write fiction. But I read the landmark series of American Patriots when I was in middle school. We didn't call it middle school then, but when I was in the the coming up years, the 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th grade, I read them all.
Yeah.
And to this day, I love a nonfiction story.
Yeah. We are quickly running out of time. This time's gone so fast.
Can't believe it. Where'd the time go?
But, I was curious. Big Stone Gap, Art of Chinese Face Reading. Is that real?
The Art of Chinese Face Reading is absolutely real, and there's books about it. It's called Xiang Mian, and it's a Chinese phrase. And it's about looking at the features of someone's face and being able to tell the roadmap of that person's life, where they're going, and their proclivities and propensities towards certain kind of behavior. Wow. And it's very helpful. I do it all the time whenever I meet someone and shake their hand. I look and I go, oh, okay. Probably won't leave a big tip at lunch. Okay. You can tell from Chinese face reading.
Well, we'll have to discuss that a little bit more after we go off the air.
We will.
Thank you very much for joining us today. Thanks for your time.
Tracy.
It's been fabulous. And we also want to say a big thanks to the students at Powell Valley High School in Big Stone Gap. Thanks, guys, for joining us today. We really appreciate it. Our guest today has been Adriana Trigiani. If you would like to learn more about her books, visit her website at www.adrianatrigiani.com. And to learn more about our upcoming programs, you can visit us at www.fcps.edu/Fairfax Network. For the Fairfax Network, I'm Tracy Jewell. Keep reading, keep writing, and keep dreaming.